edition of the CWE video podcast. I think we're going on week 8 or 9.
Week 9.
We've done a lot of talking out our asses about professional wrestling. But we got the king of talking out of their ass on the podcast tonight, our special guest, the Tattooed Terminator.
Darren Dalton.
I'm really excited to have you on the program, Darren. You're a longtime friend. You're a near 20-year veteran of professional wrestling. So we're going to talk about your career today, and we're going to talk about all things professional wrestling. Thank you, good sir. As we get started, we're going to talk about the hot topic. We're fresh off Survivor Series. This wasn't the 25th Survivor Series, correct? This was the 25th anniversary of The Undertaker?
Yeah,
correct.
The 27th.
27th. So, did you guys have a chance to watch the pay-per-view?
I did, yeah. I kind of skimmed through it anyway and watched the pertinent parts.
That's all it was really worth.
Yeah.
Skimming.
Yeah.
At best. Very,
the booking direction, I think they did what they felt was the least expected anyway, as far as who to put the title on. I don't know if Sheamus would be my first choice, but they swerved everyone.
They did, and I'm really, really surprised by that choice because I don't think Sheamus is going to be the guy going into main event WrestleMania. I'd be really, really surprised if he was, just the way he's been positioned the last year or two. So this was an opportunity that they could have given someone the ball to run with, because it's likely I would say that Sheamus or whoever is the champion is probably dropping it at Royal Rumble or around that time to who is going to be in the main event of WrestleMania. So, a guy like Kevin Owens, for example, we talked about this before, they're probably not going to give him the ball anytime soon to be that top guy. But if they've only got 3 months to transition it, why not give it to somebody like him and give it to somebody new and fresh who's really over right now? I don't watch the product on a week-to-week basis, not having cable anymore, but I did watch that match that he had with Ambrose, and the people were hot for Kevin Owens. And anytime I do watch the program, the people are hot for him. So no, he's not your typical mold for who would be the world champion or be in that top spot. But if it's going to be somebody who's holding it for 3-4 months, why not give the guy the ball to run with it? Nothing seems to be clicking or working right now and kind of getting it through that glass ceiling into the next level. This could have been an opportunity to trial run somebody new, as Sheamus has been in that position before. Yeah. So it could have gave that that fresh perspective, gave the fans something new to kind of sink their teeth into.
Did I read right? Is Cesaro on the shelf now?
Yeah, another guy
he
on
would
the
have
shelf.
been. Yeah. Really. He would have probably been a good contender to put stock into for them to give a run to. I think he really could.
Cesaro would have been a great choice. Yeah. And we talked about this before, like the programming itself in terms of the in-ring wrestling, I think is the best it's ever been. Like the quality wrestling is awesome. When you want to talk about work rate and quality of technical wrestling,
storytelling,
the matches are awesome. Like they're really, really good. Like that Ambrose Owens match was fantastic. That was my favorite match on the pay-per-view.
But it's at a point where you're even, everyone has the network now, and you're watching these matches from not that long ago, 15, 18 years ago, and these are pay-per-view matches, and you're thinking, guys get fucking fired nowadays for having a match like this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love watching like my stuff from like 97, 98 from when I was growing up, and I love that stuff as a kid. I didn't think anything different because I wasn't smart enough. I'm still not smart enough.
Oh, it's classic.
But now you put Crush versus Lex Luger in there. Like if that match were on a card today, they'd be sent down the...
I was watching one like maybe a month ago. It was like the Disciples of Apocalypse versus like Miguel Perez and Savio Vega during the gang war.
The Greek was,
and the match was just dreadful. And I'm like, these guys would all be fired if they had a match like that on TV now. They wouldn't have made it to TV wrestling like that. So in terms of like in-ring quality, I thought the pay-per-view was very, very good, but nothing stood out to me and like really hooked me that, wow, I got to tune in on Monday to see what's going to happen, because, in the case of Sheamus, for example, he's been in that position before, so it wasn't something new and fresh that had me excited. Where if they would have gave the ball to somebody new like an Ambrose or Kevin Owens, they were like, okay, cool, let's see where they're going with this. And it would have been something a little bit different and a little more interesting. But I think a part of the problem isn't necessarily the match quality. I think just the characters don't have
connection.
Like to me, my favorite match was Ambrose and Owens, but my favorite part of the pay-per-view was The Undertaker. 25 years later, he's not, he's still going at a great rate, but he still has that persona that captures you when he comes out, and you're intrigued to sit and watch him wrestle for 15 minutes. He's still a great character, he's still a great personality, and he still tells a wonderful story. Where a lot of these guys are just kind of, they're dudes in tights, kind of lost in the shuffle.
It's that music, man. It's that entrance, and that's like a testament to to a lot of workers. I mean, you hear that music, and before he's even coming out to the ring, people people are just like astounded. You know, guys in the back are just like, you know, it's, you know, the Undertaker's coming on, and then when he walks out, he just has that presence that demands respect.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's got that connection with the crowd that I think a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but some workers maybe lack. You know, they're so focused on getting in the ring and hitting this spot and this spot and this spot that they're not, you know, focusing on that kid in the front row that dad just paid $60 for a ticket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the Undertaker, he's a legend, man. And the fact that he's still going 25 years later is unbelievable.
I think they've made some strides in terms of getting more personalities and characters. I was having this discussion yesterday. That, you know, when you talk about the Attitude Era, for example, that's something, you know, when people talk about wrestling, they remember fondly, or even the 80s. Everybody was kind of like a distinct personality and character. Yeah. So everybody on the show, you'd be able to describe. If I said, oh, you know, if somebody said to me, oh, you know, that vampire guy, oh, Gangrel, you know, or like, oh, the guy's kind of like the devil, the Undertaker, or the Demon Kane, or Val Venus, the porn star, or the DOA, the pimp. You know, Steve Blackman's the martial artist.
Don't forget Max Moon. Can't forget Max Moon.
I don't know what he was.
I still don't know what he was.
You know, so everybody had a distinct character and personality on the show, where not everybody has that now because it's the reality era. So they're trying to make it more realistic based, more, you know, more
less hokey,
more, you know,
more realistic. Yeah. You know, like for example, you don't see people, and this is something that actually you pointed out to a lot of guys locally, because you know we've done a lot of traveling, had a couple of trials in WWE, and one of the things I remember when you came back from one of your trials was, I believe it was either Regal or Heyman had told you, you know, just go in front of the camera and be yourself. You don't have to yell and scream, you know, just go out there and talk like a normal person. You know, and you brought that back to the CWE, and it affected even a guy like me, who I'd get on the camera and be like, and, you know, what you gonna do?
The ironic part about that is you know, I've definitely learned to adapt and learn that style of promo, because that was something I needed to learn the first time I was in front of them that I didn't have down pat. For me personally, I love that 80s style promo.
Oh, so do I. That's what got me over.
So, you know, like when you think about a guy like The Undertaker, for example, in the reality era, his character doesn't fit in the grand scheme of it.
No, if he had debuted now, you'd be the one rolling your eyes.
You know, when people say like, oh, we need to be realistic, we need to be reality, a guy like The Undertaker's still over 25 years later, and he's a character, he's a wrestling character. But when you hear these promos, these guys going off the wall and being crazy and wild, that personally entertains me. I don't know, maybe it must not entertain the masses, that's why they don't do it.
There's also drug testing now, and I think a lot of those promos were very gimmick driven. Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. I think Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior, those ones were very drug influenced promos, and you just can't, you know, hear that because you'll piss hot now.
But if you like watch back to that time, like everybody on the show had a purpose. Yeah. Now it doesn't necessarily feel like that. Like everybody, from like the guy at the bottom of the card to the top of the card, when they were on TV, there was a reason behind it. They were enhancing some story or enhancing some talent. Where a lot of times now it feels like guys are on TV because they have to fill time.
They have to give them a spot.
They got to give them a spot. They're on payroll, so they need to get them on television.
It's a little harder to get over because I mean, you want to be out there and be a character and you want to, like, you know, have a connection with the crowd, but I mean at the same time you can't act like, you can't be like a Mantar or the Ultimate Warrior or Bastion Booger. I don't know why I'm saying all these jobbers' names. This is what's going in my head.
Danny Duggan.
You know.
On that note, we need to book Mantar. You know, Levi wrestles.
Yeah, he's not too far away. He's wrestling in Iowa.
He still works.
Oh yeah,
he still works. Apparently he sold his Buffalo mask or whatever that was. He sold that for crack money years ago, and he's kind of been in and out of jail for beating his wife. But other than that, he's around.
So Levi works with him regularly. He couldn't get into Canada, is what you're saying.
Levi works with him regularly.
But I've had this just a fun-spirited debate with people in the past, and maybe you can give me your thoughts on it. Is we're at that point now where everyone's like, well, we know wrestling's fake, we know it's a show, we know it's entertainment, but we're trying to make it as realistic as possible so you don't have that disconnect. If the general perception is, oh, it's show, it's wrestling, it's fun, why not have these amped up, fun, wild characters and kind of be the fun that it's supposed to be? I think I'd be more inclined, and the casual public would be more inclined, if they knew, hey, if I turn that on, it's going to be a little wild, it's going to be a little silly, but I'm going to have fun when I'm watching it. Right. Where now the casual person's like, well, it's fake, these guys aren't really fighting, They don't really have a personality that connects with me. So
I think the part of the thing that lose sight on is the realism that people want is the realism in the legitimacy of, would that hurt me? Would that put me out? Would that knock me unconscious? Would someone be able to just get up from that? That's kind of more the reality they should focus on, not the reality would someone actually act like this, they actually dress like this? Well, no, fuck.
Well, and another thing, and this honestly gets me, am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fucking hot.
We had TJ Brett last week.
Yeah, well, okay, this isn't jobber week.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That was last week with TJ Brett, okay? Dalton's here this week. The thing that gets me about that is, man, like, and I guess because I was broken in old school, I was broken in by Brian Jewell, Robbie Royce, Bobby Cowan, Easy Rider, and for literally 6 months, I just got the shit kicked out of me. I didn't get in a ring. There were any spots. I got chopped till my chest was pink. I got clotheslined. I got dumped on my head.
wait a minute, you were trained?
Well, half the time. But then Ernie just told me no, it was actually I don't even know if people remember his shoot name, the Mercenary. How would I address it? How would the public know Svink? Steve Striker. He said he was a booker, and I was partially trained, and he said, just go out there and flex, kid, and you'll get over. And then that just gave me, I'll be honest, it gave me the Goldberg head. I was like partially trained, teaming with Easy Rider. Yeah.
Is that when you were wearing the Care Bear singlet?
Go fuck yourself, by the way.
Darren Dalton, big tough Tattooed Terminator, used to wear a singlet that made him look like a Care Bear.
Oh man, the story behind that. I went down to this place at the time. It was called Rave Reviews, and she primarily made stuff for strippers, but she made a lot of stuff for the boys. I spent $400 on this gimmick, and because me and Easy at the time, we were called Heaven and Hell. He's obviously the badass biker, and at the time I had highlights in my hair, and I was the big baby face. So I said, I wanted like a halo, a shut up, a lightning bolt through it, and some freaking thunderclouds on the back. I show up, and she shows it to me, and it's the fucking Care Bear countdown.
Well, that's exactly what you described. I don't know what you expected to get.
That's not what I described. I wanted thunder coming down, not the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, freaking, and I was like,
not Grumpy Bear, yeah.
And she didn't give me a refund. She tried to cover up. I got ribbed so much, I wore it 3 times, and I ended up selling it to Midget Bruce on the Northern Tube for $300.
Didn't you force him to buy it?
I forced him to buy it.
He's a midget. He probably didn't even fit this thing.
Well, it was when we were getting PLs, remember, in one of those freaking haunted places. And I went up to him, I said, oh, you're buying this, and I think I took $200 from him.
So you literally threatened and stole money from a midget?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just
exactly.
so we're clear.
In exchange for gear.
In exchange
for ring gear.
For wrestling.
Wrestling.
Yeah, ring gear.
So just to get back on track what we're talking about, we talked about these wild, crazy characters. Care Bear was standing here. In the late 80s, early 90s, the big boom, you had wild characters. You had Big Boss Man, you had Coco Beware, Jake the Snake. You had these characters, but even though they were wild, crazy characters that may not have been realistic to human life, the stories were written so well. If you go back and watch like the wrestling from say 86, I think it was maybe George Scott was booking at the time. It was like 86 to 92, 93. The stories were fucking great. Like, the consistency was good, such good attention to detail that everything made sense. So yeah, Jake Roberts is a fucking guy throwing around a snake, but when it came down to the meat and potatoes of the heat in the feud and what they were fighting about, it was legitimate. There was no holes in it.
And he made it so believable.
Yeah.
He made it so believable.
They all did. And there was logic behind the angle. Like
exactly.
It wasn't like it was a real life situations that any person sitting at home could connect to because it was something that you would struggle with or you would have a beef with somebody in real life about. It wasn't these wild, crazy, things that are blowing up cars and.
Why do you look at me when you say that?
I think you've probably blown up a car too. So I think maybe it's just me being nostalgic because I love that kind of stuff. And I think of a promotion on the mainstream, maybe it wouldn't catch huge fire, but I think there would be a market for traditional wrestling in the sense of not let's all just put on tights and boots and wrestle, but let's have the wild, fun, crazy characters and the amped up promos and the over the top personalities where guys like Warlord are walking out looking like monsters. Sure, he's not going to give you a 5-star wrestling classic, but the general public, if you put a guy like Warlord walking through the mall, people go, holy fuck, who's that guy? And I think wrestling is missing that unique, larger than life aspect to it, where now it's just like, oh well, it's good athletes.
Yeah.
Well, if I want to watch good athletes legitimately compete, I'm going to watch sports.
Yes. I think a part of the reason that is, like, don't get me wrong, I think, reality shows have a place, but to be honest, and maybe it's because I'm very old school and just brought in.
You're just old.
Well, yeah, but you actually look my age. So. All these reality shows, it's like, Breaking Ground, it's a good show. All these reality shows about wrestlers, I mean, the reason why it wasn't like that back then is because you didn't have any alternate information about these characters, so that when they came out to the ring, it was like, wow, this is amazing. Now you're seeing these guys working out, you're seeing them eating supper, you're seeing them as normal people.
Yeah.
People don't want to see.
They're being humanized.
And exactly, that's what it is.
Before, the most you'd see is flipping through a magazine at 7-Eleven, hey, check this out, they're in Atlanta next week.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what's taking away. Like, I don't honestly, personally, I have nothing against what NXT is doing. They've done great things, but I just don't personally like the fact that they have exposed so much, and maybe that's just the old school in me. I still like the kayfabe idea of wrestling. I don't like that everything's been so exposed in the open,
I think there is some merit to that in the sense that wrestlers always had a mystery about them, where you didn't know about them, so it was intriguing when they walked through the curtain, like, who is this fucking guy?
Right.
And that's something that's been lost. So we need to take a quick break and do a sound check. It's getting a little too loud and wild here in the gym, and then we'll return and continue to talk some mainstream wrestling. And we're back from commercial break. We have switched locations. As you probably heard before we went to break, it's getting a little too loud. There's some jobber in there boxing with one of the bags.
Hands down the whole fucking time too.
Yeah, I don't think he realizes you can punch the bag as many times as you want. At the end of the day, you're still a jobber.
Yes.
And when it comes down to a fight with a real person, you're probably going to get knocked out.
Bag doesn't hit back.
So all you did was inconvenience my podcast. So old Derek probably would have yelled at him. You must have been melting out with your with time here.
Speaking of inconveniencing the podcast, we're down a man here.
Well, sort of a man.
Sort of a man.
Half a man at best.
We're down a body.
We're down a body in the hot prospect Travis Cole. He was intimidated and afraid to be in the same room with Darren Dalton. He's from Calgary. He's not from Winnipeg, so he's heard the stories. He knows that you're a big, scary guy with a reputation of blowing up at young kids. And I think he was worried that if he maybe said the wrong thing to you, you might shoot on him and put him in his place on the podcast.
Well, you know what? I would probably say that, before today, I'd probably, if I was to run into him on the street or in the gym, I'd probably, be nice to him like I always am. But, you know what? I think maybe the old bomb's gonna have to come out of the closet the next time. That actually sounded really bad. I'm gonna take that back.
That's because we're talking about Travis Cole.
Yeah, whenever I think about Travis Cole, I think about him coming out of the closet because he looks like like he's coming out of the closet.
So if you're coming out of the closet, are you leaving him in there, or are you taking him out with you?
No, I'm gonna leave him in there. I'm gonna leave him in there with Adam Knight, and they can have fun. It's just whatever. But no, you know what? I don't really know Travis Cole, that much. I've talked to him a couple times, but I think I need to have another, chat with him.
I think it's pretty disrespectful he wouldn't be here on the podcast.
I think it's very disrespectful to not to come and, just sit down with a guy like me who just wants to, talk about wrestling and tell some stories and maybe give him some insight and possibly help him out and
have some laughs. And
and if he doesn't want my help or my insight, then you know what? Fuck him. I don't care. That's fair. You go fuck yourself.
Go fuck himself. I want to talk about one other WWE issue before we talk about some local wrestling and some Canadian wrestling. Rob brought my attention today a post by Mick Foley. If you don't mind pulling it up here, maybe you can read that briefly because it was a brief post. He's talking about his thought on the current WWE product, and it kind of segues from what we were talking about before the commercial break about how he's no longer a fan, or he's becoming less of a fan about how a lot of the guys that are getting over, they're putting in the work, they're connecting with the audience, continuously get passed by for guys that aren't. and how he feels that there's a glass ceiling for certain guys. So maybe Rob can pull that up and read that briefly, and we can kind of discuss it.
Well, I mean, essentially just to paraphrase, just kind of going through it real quickly here. So he starts off by saying, quoting from one of his old articles, it just says, eventually people get tired of finding out that the WWE superstars they have supported with their cheers, their signs, their purchases, their follows, and their likes aren't real superstars. And little by little, those fans lose interest in WWE, find other interests, and become former WWE fans. I am one of those people on the verge of becoming a former WWE fan. I'm tired of being told through Raw, SmackDown, and pay-per-views that superstars that I have rooted for, from Ziggler to Cesaro to Kevin Owens, aren't top stars, no matter how strongly crowd reaction seems to disagree. I'm tired of NXT stars getting their big break in WWE just to be treated like jokes. 6 months ago, my son and I traveled 12 hours from Eastern Tennessee to Orlando, Florida, to watch Sasha Banks wrestle Becky Lynch at NXT TakeOver. One of the greatest women's matches of all time.
Amazing match.
Last night, in what I believe was their first singles match on Raw, Sasha and Becky were given 4 minutes. At a time when WWE desperately needs to make new stars, when they need to give wrestlers with talent the opportunity to break through, they gave Sasha and Becky 4 minutes. I turned the channel and watched a pretty good football game instead. A little bit more paraphrasing, and to which he ends off by saying, there is an old saying in politics, as Ohio goes, so goes the nation. Think of me as the Ohio of wrestling fans. If I leave, it's not just one disgruntled former fan finding something else to do on Monday nights. Instead, losing a long-time die-hard fan like me might well be an indication of a larger exodus from WWE. I guess we'll see what tale the ratings tell. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I think he sums it up quite nicely, to be honest. It's more or less what we were saying.
For the most part. I mean, it's what he says is truthful. I mean, obviously, like, with the ratings wise, I mean, you're obviously just going to get people who are going to watch it regardless of what happens, right? So you'll get the diehard fans, but as they slowly start to, the WWE starts to put like a lower quality product out, and just becomes the shits, then, what's going to happen? These people are going to start tuning out, and I mean, the ratings have reflected that. Apparently, this past Monday was the first time that the Raws averaged less than 3 million viewers.
Oh, wow.
Really?
For the first time in a very long time.
And I think that goes back to just not connecting with the audience. Like when I watch, there's a lot of guys that, are talented but not necessarily capture my attention where I wanted to in each and every week. And then there's guys that are, but sometimes those guys, for whatever reason, aren't going ahead. Like it's tough. Like he mentions a guy like Kevin Owens, and in the grand scheme of things, on the outside, it looks like he's getting a big push. He's gone over on John Cena this year. He's getting a Continental Champion. But when you watch Survivor Series, that match with Ambrose that we were talking about, he probably had one of the strongest reactions of the night, if not the strongest reaction, maybe outside The Undertaker. So you're somebody that the fans are clearly passionate about, but is he going to get past that glass ceiling, or is he going to just remain where he is until fans lose interest? And that's happened to a lot of guys where they'll be red hot, and then for whatever reason they don't get that kick in the ass to go a little bit further. So then as a result, the fans don't necessarily give up, but they realize their guy's not getting where he needs to be, and then he's no longer over. Oh, well, he's not over anymore. We can't push him. A guy like Daniel Bryan was a great example of somebody the fans were so passionate about they had no choice, but you could tell for a long time they didn't want to give him that kick in the ass and push in the right direction, but they were really kind of handcuffed into doing so because fans were hijacking shows when he wasn't being put in these positions. So why do you think that is? Like, is it simply a matter of politics, or is it a matter of them going, you know what, we've been doing this long enough, we know what sells in the long term, so you think you want this right now, but we know in the long term this is better for the company. What do you think the logic is behind it?
I think part of it comes down to they plan shit months and months in advance, and then sometimes when it doesn't stick to the wall, they don't realize that they got to change the course, and they're like, no, we'll stick with the plans, and the reaction's poor, and they don't adapt, they don't adjust. They just say, okay, well when we're done, maybe long term they think, okay, well, when we're done with this whole Batista Triple H program, we can look up Daniel Bryan, but people don't want to wait.
You gotta strike while the iron's hot.
Exactly. Someone's hot.
I think one of the problems, and again, I'm not in a WWE locker room, nor do I give two shits if what WWE,
wrestlers or officials or authority think about what I say, but I think some of it potentially comes down to people in the higher up position playing favorites. I mean, it's no secret that I've heard from, names that have been in town that Triple H is pretty synonymous for playing favorites on people. I've heard that, for example, he doesn't particularly care for a guy like Cesaro.
Right.
I've heard that he's actually quite tight with Sheamus.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Who's the world champion right now?
exactly. So I mean, I think that could be, that could be part of it. And in terms of Kevin Owens, I think he's got so much potential and possibility that with him it could potentially be just, we're just doing that slow burn with him, because he's just kind of that 2015 kind of heel it factor. So I don't think he could ever not be over.
Yeah.
So I mean, for him to go like this, he's just going to be that slow progression.
If you give him TV time, he'll make the most of
And
it.
apparently,
Apparently that's important.
It is.
Apparently, since
absolutely.
day one, Triple H has been pretty high on Kevin Owens, so maybe that is the plan.
Maybe it's a combination of the two. There's just some people that.
But I remember watching Cesaro, for example, maybe a year or two ago when I was watching more regularly. He was red hot, like people, and then you hear, McMahon say on the podcast that he doesn't think he has the it factor or whatever the case may be.
He doesn't connect with the audience.
Doesn't connect with the audience,
He
but
doesn't reach for the brass ring or whatever the fuck it
but
was.
this guy's killing it with incredible matches, and the crowd is hot for him. So okay, maybe his promo isn't strong, but that's where you bring in a manager, which they did with Paul Heyman for a little while. Zack Ryder, was it 3-4 years ago? He was red hot for a little while, and the people were, people said, okay, well that wasn't authentic, and that was kind of a fad. And then I've heard other theories that, the Office, didn't think he was a strong enough worker to work on top long enough, so they, realized he could only go so far, and he had reached that, so they started burying. But I don't agree with that, because if somebody is over, regardless of their talents, there's a way to protect them and use them in a way to showcase their strengths and hide their weaknesses. If you look at a young Lex Luger, guys like that, from Ultimate Warrior, Goldberg, these guys were all really limited on what they can do inside the ring, but they were booked and protected in such a way that they weren't exposed. Exactly. So you were able to get the most out of them being over, present them as stars, and make some money off them. Now it's like, he's really over, but his promo's not the best, or his work's not the best.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? It's not about that. If a guy's connecting with an audience, that's what matters.
Exactly. If he's over, he's over. I mean, it's like, I know I got, ribbed by you even when you were like, a younger, braver. I never really understood. It's like, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when I was a little bit more hot-headed, a lot of people like kind of tiptoed around me. And the one thing I always gave, you credit for is even when you were a young, skinny kid with that, that weird haircut and the skinny arms, not the jack guy you are now.
Those things right there.
Well, they're all right, but it's you always kind of spoke your mind. And there were times when I would heel on you a little bit, but in the back of my mind I was thinking, this kid just, he speaks his mind, and he just really doesn't give a shit what anybody thinks.
To a fault sometimes.
I could probably slap him out, and he wouldn't really care. And I mean, but the thing is, look where it's gotten you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But they've done that for years. Like we just had Rob Van Dam in, and we were talking. I sat and talked with him for hours, and he was saying the same kind of thing happened with him when he was there. He's a guy that's always been over, no matter what office he's worked in.
Yeah.
He's just had this incredible ability to connect with an audience.
Right.
And there was times, especially when he first got to WWE in the early 2000s, that he was red hot, during the invasion and stuff like that. He was hotter than guys like Austin. It was crazy, but they never really gave him that full push. And from talking to him, he mentioned times where he felt that he was being held down by guys like Triple H or other people in the office because he wasn't playing the game of politics and kissing ass to the right people. And you're always going to hear that, guys are held down and this and that. But there is some truth to that in the business that does happen.
Exactly.
But he was another guy that could have been a top, and he was at one point. They put him over on Cena, a few years later for the title, and then he got himself suspended. But that does happen, and it's just really bizarre to me. At the end of the day, when there's millions of dollars on the line, as there is with such a big company, I don't care who my buddy is. Yeah. I can fucking hate somebody, but if they're bringing me in sold out arenas and they're selling me pay-per-views, cash those checks.
Right.
I don't have to hang out with you afterwards.
Exactly.
I want to touch base on one local issue. It's not from Winnipeg. It's from Edmonton and Calgary that kind of sprung up. I'm still waiting on some more details, so maybe I can get more of a detailed update next week. But Real Canadian Wrestling out of Alberta, ran by your good buddy Squiggy, Steven Styles. They ran a benefit show for Jason the Terrible, Carl Moffat, Stampede Wrestling legend.
The original Jason the
Yeah,
Terrible?
you know, and
Okay.
Jason's, you know, Carl's a great guy, great human being that I've had the opportunity to meet over the last few years from my trips to Alberta. I guess, you know, he's having some financial issues because he had to, you know, he got hurt, or he had to go for surgery, I believe, and it was from years of wrestling, so he wasn't covered by his workers' compensation. So they were doing the kind thing, and they were running a couple benefit shows with the profit after expenses going to him to help him live his life, which is great.
Right.
You know, Carl's put in years in the business and was a legend in Alberta and Stampede Wrestling and in Japan and stuff like that. I guess there was a controversy as there's a claim that the gate was stolen or money was stolen, so Carl wasn't given very much money at all because somebody had stolen money. And I've been asking around to the boys trying to get an idea of what happened. You know, some people say that, yeah, it's probably bullshit, and we all kind of suspect that, you know, the promoter just pocketed some money, and I've heard of scams like this tons of times over the years, unfortunately. But there's the belief that he may have stolen money, or just, you know, kept some for himself and didn't give Carl the full proceeds. And then there's others like, well, we really don't know. Maybe money was stolen. I find it just to be a very interesting situation, because you have to be like, someone's a giant piece of shit.
Oh.
Whether it's the promoter for lying about it, or whoever one of the boys would have been that would have stole the money. But I've been on shows for Candello, for example. Like, we drove 10 hours. We drove 10 hours up north to Norway House, and he's like, "Oh, they stole the gate, boys. You're gonna have to wait 2 weeks for your money." We're like, "Dude, no, they didn't."
You wouldn't have fucking even let the show happen.
No.
If you,
and he's like the coolest, calmest, like, "Hey guys, they stole $1,000. Like, no,
shit. You wouldn't even have fucking had that ring set up if they'd have fucking done that.
So I just kind of wanted to bring that to attention here, and hopefully I have an update on next week. But my thoughts on it. Shitty things like that do happen in wrestling, but unfortunately for a guy like Steven, he's got a fucking brutal reputation in the business. I've been fucked for money by him probably more times than I can count on this hand.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's plenty of boys, I know there's plenty of boys, dozens that I've met across Canada that have worked for him that have said the exact same thing. So this is really an unfortunate case of, well, asshole, you've stiffed so many guys over the years, it's hard for me to say, hey, I sympathize with you. Maybe it was something that happened and it's an accident.
No.
Because you've done it to so many people over the years. You've nickel and dimed so many people. He did it, you know, to me, where he promised me I was getting some money when I ended up sick in the hospital. And I'll probably get into that story, you know, next week or another time.
You drove Renee Dupree there for him.
Right, when I drove Renee and Burke and Darren Corbin out there, and I ended up getting, you know, sick and stuck out there with my vehicle and being stranded in Alberta. That's a whole other story. But even prior to that, years prior, when I worked for him in, I think it was like 2008, 2009, whatever it was. He didn't run Edmonton for a long time because they were really heavy with their commission. Yeah. So a lot of promotions couldn't get in there. So he used to always just run the surrounding area. Eventually he got a license and was able to run in Edmonton, but nobody would work for him because he was the new kid on the block in Edmonton, and everybody there is, you work for me and nobody else. So he didn't have a crew. So he then, outsourced his spots to myself, AJ Sanchez, Tommy Lee Curtis, a couple other guys, and we drove out there, and it was a really small crew. There was like 6 or 8 of us or whatever it might have been, but we busted our ass and we put on some fucking good shows for him. And he started drawing really well, and he started drawing well. The shows were good, so sure enough, local boys from the other offices were like, "Oh, what's going on over there?" So then there was some interest from other guys that started coming over, so then he started to field the crew guys locally. So all of a sudden he didn't need us anymore, so all of a sudden my envelope started to be a little bit lighter. "Oh, sorry guys, I can't get your full trans, I'll get it for you next time." And the next time would come and our trans was short again, and we still hadn't got our trans before. So it came to a point where I just stopped working for him. And I didn't work with him for years after that, because I thought it was pretty fucking... I thought it was shitty that he stiffed us on the money, but secondly, I thought it was shitty that we came in and busted our ass building his brand in Edmonton for him. Yeah, when he had nobody, and then the second he had others, he gave us the boot, and I thought that was kind of disrespectful and a lack of loyalty on his behalf.
And that's what happens and that's what happens, like, in my opinion. I mean, personally, I've never actually worked him, but I actually have a story about that too, and he actually came within 10 feet of him, because whether I was wrestling, for Monster Pro and he was in the vicinity, wherever I was, he made sure
he for some reason wasn't there. But I mean, getting back to it, that's what happens when you let an untrained, mark, fat, fucking piece of shit loser who doesn't respect the business run a promotion.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he does. I would think, you know, I think 100% that he is probably responsible for, like, you know, for taking that money, because he doesn't have the respect to be in the business. He's a fat piece of shit. I remember back in 2010 when I came back because I'd had an injury, and you booked him in a match with me at
Probably Polish Hall, probably.
no, I think it was Foreplay.
Oh, foreplay.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, at the last minute,
He bailed.
he bailed because he knew he knew he was working me, and it's a good thing because I would have beat the shit out of him. I would have broken his nose. I would have broken his ribs, because he doesn't. With me is like, you know what? If you're an untrained mark jobber piece of shit who hasn't paid your dues, you don't belong in my ring.
Yeah.
And when you get in my ring, I'm gonna shoot on you. I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna pound you down into the fucking ground, OTC style.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're never gonna be heard from again. I think he's a complete piece of shit. I've never worked for RCW. I've been asked to, you know, in the past. And I mean, again, I had loyalty to Massive Damage and Monster Pro, which I spent a lot of my time with. But one of the biggest pieces of garbage in the industry. And you know what? He could just fall off the face of the earth, and I would.
He's won one match for CWE, and it was probably the worst match we've ever had.
At Rookies.
It was at Foreplay.
They worked for
Oh,
Rookies.
and he did that. Or he's done two, actually.
Yeah,
he did that show Rookies. He's done two.
And Billy fucking stiffed the shit out of him.
Yeah, because we did. We were working together. Like, he was booking our guys, so he happened to be in town when we had a show. So as a courtesy, as much as I really didn't want to do it, because I hate that bullshit of, you know, you're expected to book a guy because he's in, or no, because like, I'm booking you, so you have to book me.
Right, yeah.
If you're talented 100%, I of course I'm going to extend the courtesy to you, but he's somebody that's not. So I always hated feeling pressure that I had to book him because he was booking our guys. No, you're booking us because we're good and we're enhancing your show.
Yeah.
You do not enhance our show. And then I remember him wanting to be paid what he paid me, and I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind if you think your talent is worth the same that mine is, because you don't even belong in the business in the first place. But we put him on the show, and I think it was like him and Marius versus Zach Mercury and Paul Arcidi.
Oh,
and it was so bad. It's so funny because we're saying one of the worst matches I had was with Zach Mercury a couple weeks ago. But when we talk about it, like, this is what kind of gets me about a guy like Squig right now, and it's just kind of a frustration in general, because I understand, like, at this level, we got to work where we can, and we got to make some money. So I try not to fault guys for when they work for shitty promotions. Like, you know, there's times I work on some shows that I'm like, man, I don't know how I feel about these. You know, but they're making the effort by booking guys like myself and a few others to try to enhance their product, which I can appreciate.
Sure.
But, you know, so guys got to work for guys like him sometimes because there's no other work. They need to get experience. And if there's some good guys on the show, they might learn something. And I'd rather some good wrestlers wrestle on a shitty show and give it some credibility and not turn people off the business than it be a complete fucking shit fest.
Yeah.
But a guy like Squig, for example, like I said, when he stiffed me, I didn't work for him for years. And I finally, after guys said, you know what, he's changed, things are better, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and then it happened again. He's done this now. Like, I've wrestled coast to coast in this country, and somebody in every territory has worked for him at some point going through Alberta, and they all have a story of him fucking them for money. It's happened so much now where it's like the boys have to stand up for the brotherhood of the business, which was a fucking joke at the best of time, but there needs to be some credibility where it's like, no, hey, you fucked Danny for money, you fucked Carl for money, you fucked this guy in Newfoundland for money, you fucked this guy. No, we're just not going to let you fucking operate in our business anymore. But so many guys go, no, that's okay, he fucked them, he's not fucking me.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a fucking backbone and stand up, because guess what? Eventually he's going to fuck you too.
Yeah, exactly. Your day's coming.
And you're going to hate him, you know? Like, there's some credible guys that work for him, and that's their attitude. Like, well, he hasn't stiffed me yet.
Yeah, he's beating me right now.
So it's okay that he stiffs all your fucking, you know, your buddies and your friends, or your supposed buddies and friends, and it's okay because he needs guys, so he's treating you right now. Well, guess what? What's going to happen when he finds a guy for a little bit cheaper and a little bit closer to town? You're going to get fucking stiff next. And I'm going to sit here and say, hey, I told you so. So I just really wish in that sense, in a business where the brotherhood is so dismantled, that there be some kind of unity. You know, and I've done that with some talents where if I found a guy who was disrespectful to the business and bad for the business, I've had no problem going to promoters that respect the business and being like, you need to stay away from this guy for the better of your product and for the better of the business, because there is there is a place to say, hey, you don't belong here.
Yep.
And we're at a time now where everybody's allowed in. Sometimes you shouldn't be allowed. If you're a guy that's maybe not capable and you're coming in and you're putting in the work and effort to try and belong, I can respect that. I will work with this fucking bottle of water to try and make it worth something in the business if this bottle of water has a good attitude and wants to be there. But if it's somebody that is not putting worth the effort, eventually you gotta put your foot down and be like, get out.
Yeah.
Whether you're a promoter or whether you're a wrestler. So I really hope in light of this thing, it kind of gets sorted out and Carl gets the help he needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy say, you know what? He's fucking a guy that's been around 30 fucking years. Who's one of the nicest human beings on the planet for those that haven't met him. Like, Carl is awesome. You know, you hear the story of the old, disgruntled veterans that are hard to be around. Carl's one of the nicest human beings. So for something like this to happen, like,
Yeah.
and even like
Unfortunate.
and even like the take I saw like Steven post about it, he's like, this money was stolen, but I guess the money that that we did give him wasn't enough, and trying to like turn it around on him and like show some respect for the guy. And that's my rant of the day on pieces of shit that probably don't belong in the business. We're gonna take a final break and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna direct our attention to the bomb. Bomb, yeah.
Yes, well, yeah.
And now we're going to talk the career of Darren Dalton. We're going to jump all over the place because we have about a half hour and I want to cover plenty of things. On the topic of Steven, it reminded me of a match you had in CWE that I want to jump to right off the get-go. It was yourself and Spider against the oddball tag team of Rex Roberts and JS McStrongarm.
The Polish Hall.
At the Polish Hall.
I recall.
Bring us back in time and give me the details behind why I love this story so much.
You know what? I don't even remember.
What happened, I guess.
I do briefly remember telling you after, at the Palomino, the drunken story about how I wanted to do whatever I wanted to him. And I remember several wrestlers stopping me from going up top and like literally smashing his teeth down his fucking throat.
Just for the record, you're talking about McStrongarm, not Rex.
Rex
Yeah, Rex is cool.
He's
Yeah.
my brother from another mother. We
Fucking
broke in at the same time. Love him to death, but this strongbow jobber piece of shit.
Strong arm.
Whatever the fuck. I don't even care. And I hope he watches this podcast, and I hope he has something to say, and I hope he goes on the internet and does this, and this, because if he's ever in Winnipeg, he'll never have the balls and come and say anything to my face, because nobody does. And that's why I tell it like it is. We were downstairs, and we were going over the match. And you know what? Me and Spider, when we were wrestling together as OTC, we didn't do a lot of complicated, glorifying things, but we got in the ring and we beat people up, and that's what people wanted to see. So we came up with this and this. He's like, well, no, I don't really think that'll get my character over. You have sparkly glasses and freaking gay freaking spandex, like pink spandex. How are you gonna get over anyway? And he was so difficult to work with in the ring. He screwed up the one of the heat spots. He screwed up the hot comeback, and then the finish, he completely botched. It was supposed to be a top rope power bomb, and he said he was okay with it at the last minute. He completely sacked out, and he made the match look like complete shit. He ruined that entire match, and then downstairs he was complaining he was hurt, and then afterwards he was complaining that he was hurt.
I think he even had to back up the train. Did kind of the heat start because when he came into the building, he didn't shake Spider's hand?
Yeah, that actually was.
So like Spider wanted to kill him right out the gate.
Well, you know what? Spider didn't really want to. Spider.
He was annoyed with him at first.
He didn't really want to kill him, but I mean, the thing is with Spider, and a lot of people don't really know. Spider has kind of in the last 5 to 6 years probably calmed down a little bit. Had that been Spider 10 years ago, he would have broken a bottle and tried to slice his throat like he tried to slice Bobby J's throat 17 years ago at a CWE show.
Yeah.
But I was more pissed off because this is my boy who's been my boy for 25 years, and you're gonna disrespect him. So me and Spider just looked at each other and I'm like, okay.
And he's coming into our locker room for the first time, right?
Yeah. You know what? We'll just take care of it in the ring.
Exactly.
And you know what? There were a couple spots in that match that were very stiff and solid. And I'm just like, you know what? Come on.
But that's just you on a normal day.
It was. But I was trained by Brian Jewell and Robbie Royce. I mean, give me a break.
And the thing of it too, for those of you who don't know Spider, when I first came over to CWF, Spider's an intimidating. He's a legit tough motherfucker, but he's helpful. He gives guys pointers. He never loses his temper. I've never seen him like in a locker room kind of thing, right? And if someone needs coaching and correction, he'll pull the guy aside and be like, hey, look, man. When you're in there, I need you to protect me. I need you to do this. But that day, he was fucking hot, and I was like, holy fuck! I didn't want to fucking like ask him. I was like, holy fuck! Spider, he's fucking hot.
Spider is. I've always said like, for people that know me, I can be a mouthy prick.
Yeah.
And there's not too many people, like, even if I know I'm gonna get the shit kicked out of me, there's not too many people I would back down from a fight. I will stand up and I'll take my shit kicking. Spider's a guy, if I knew he was coming in my direction, I would run as fast as I fucking can.
For sure.
Because he's the kind of guy that once he's on you, he'll probably fucking rip your head off.
He will.
Yeah, and he won't think twice about it. He's a scary dude. Like, he's somebody you don't throw down with.
No,
so I found it very bizarre. Like, I personally don't have a problem with Janet on a personal level. He was always very, nice to me, but on a professional level, he did a lot of things that irked a lot of people. Yeah. So I think a big part of that was, he was coming into our locker room. He was there for the one night, so it was his job to make our, top babyface tag team look good when he was more concerned about making himself look good.
Exactly.
And then following the match, he was, heard to anybody that was listening that you guys kind of took advantage of him and beat him up and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But I didn't think, I wasn't on the receiving end of what was happening to him. But from what I was watching, it wasn't that bad. I've seen you give the guys worse that you like.
It wasn't that bad.
No,
it honestly wasn't that bad. It was just typical, anybody who's been in the ring with me knows I can be, pretty stiff if I want to, but the thing is, Spider doesn't know how to work any other way. So if he likes you, he's going to stiff you. I'm his best friend in the world, and I worked him, and he's taken my head off. If he doesn't like you, he's going to kill you.
That's exactly. I don't think he got it that bad.
No, I don't think got it a lot worse.
I've seen Spider fuck guys up.
Oh, yeah.
And he walked out on his own accord. He was not bleeding. He had no black eye. He had no broken bones.
Exactly.
I would consider that a win.
Oh yeah, because at this point, we were saying, let's give it to him a little bit, but at the same time, we're not gonna kick the living crap out of him and make it look like it's not an actual match. And we did that, and he still bitched and complained, but he could have got it 10 times worse. And after at the Palomino, I wanted to give it to him 10 times worse. And as a matter of fact, it was Spider was one of the guys that said, don't bother. 15 years ago, he would have been freaking I'm not going to say that. He would have been breaking a bottle and running down the street trying to stab him. Because Spider, I'm telling you, is by far, people have asked me before, who do you think who's the toughest guy that you've ever come across, in wrestling? And by far, hands down, I would not want to. There's nobody that I would probably back down from, and I'm thankful that Spider is my best friend, and we've been boys for 25 years because I've seen him do things in the past that would make a regular man run for the hills.
He's the kind of guy you probably have to kill to stop him.
Literally doesn't have an off switch.
Literally, you would have to, and even though he's calmed down. And he's, kind of domesticated now. I heard he wears a little apron and does laundry. Only I can get away with saying that. Anybody else would get killed. But you know what? He's 10, 15 years ago, he was the guy that, if something went wrong in a match, he would come back and he would be throwing things around and breaking this and breaking that. And I knew not to go near him because whenever Spider's looking sideways, but you're over there, that's his target, and he's coming at you, and he's probably going to come at you with a gimmick or something, and you're going to get it. And that's in the bar, that's in the ring, that's on the street, and that's,
Maybe give us a little bit of history of your relationship with Spider. Because you guys kind of broke into the business around the same time, but if I'm not mistaken, you guys were friends before the business, were you not?
Yeah, me and Spider actually started, we started playing football together. He started a little bit younger than me, but we started when we were, I believe, 11 years old, and we played football together. And even back then, he was that kid that was number one, he was 12 years old and had a hairy chest and a 5 o'clock shadow, but he also had traps and the arms he has now. And he was a complete nutball on the field. He would destroy guys, but then he would come down in the dressing room and he would just be psychotic and on fire. He was that kid that you'd probably have to throw a bottle of Ritalin at him from a mile away to calm him down.
but we clicked then, and we played ball together, won a couple championships together, played at the provincial level. We both had opportunities to go to university and play football, but we chose different directions. We worked in the bars together. I remember working at Wise Guys, which is now District Stop, which ironically I still work at. Yes, that makes me very old. I was 21 at the time, and he was 22, and working across the street as Rolling Stone. And we were literally fighting back to back in the middle of the street. And it was almost like it would do the old switcheroo, and I'd be pounding on the guy he was fighting, and it was vice versa. But I mean, it just we've been boys for so long, and then we kind of lost touch a little bit after the bar scene, and then all of a sudden I walk into the CWF training center, and he was training with Brian Bailey, who at the time was Scar, I believe he wrestled as, and they were cousins, and he had started to train, and I was like, holy shit, I haven't seen you in 2 or 3 years. What's going on? And we started training together. I mean, I would pick him up and drive him to the training center. He was one of the few wrestlers that I actually had a really, really close relationship with my daughter, and still does. And it's funny because the day my daughter was born, there were only 2 wrestlers that came to the hospital, to visit her, which, it was no big deal. But he had gotten off the plane from Vancouver. He was wrestling for ECCW at the time. He was going out there at least once a month. He had bandages all over his face and everything else, but he was like, you know what? I got to get to the hospital because, I got to see Dalton's kid. And he showed a picture of him holding my daughter Marissa, and he's got this bandage with blood coming down here and razor marks here, and he just had that. He had that just happy look on his face, and that continued on. I mean, he was always over at my house, hanging out with me, playing with her. I can remember at the time when Marissa's mom would be working, I would actually, when I was wrestling at Chalmers, I would bring her to the shows with me. And Spider would watch her downstairs in a little give me walk, and everybody, well, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And everybody, yeah. We're not saying nothing. And he'd sneak in little smiles, and I'd come back downstairs, and I mean, I trust him with my life, and I trusted him with my daughter's life then, and I trust him with her life now, and he's just, we were at a point where I'd come back, and I think we did the CWE, and I felt like I was kind of stalled a little bit, and I mean, me and you had kind of talked about possibly bringing Spider back, and I mean, it took a while, and it took a lot of convincing, because he was stubborn, and you were just asking me, and finally, he said, okay, I'll come back, and I mean, I'm just, I know in the past I've tooted my own horn a lot, Danny Duggan does, but he's actually gone somewhere and done something, but I mean, the whole way Danny helped us, construct OTC from the save Spider made in the Rumble to Remember, and then making our debut. It's just the reactions we got from the crowd, and just the fun it was just being able to team together for the first time, and just get in the ring and just do what we do, just beat people up, because we never did anything fancy or crazy.
No, and that was always what's good about the OTC, as we talked about earlier with connecting to an audience. You guys weren't the guys going out there exchanging fancy wrestling holds, but you were very believable characters that the audience could connect with, because you were 2 legitimate, tough, badass dudes. So when you came through the curtain, people knew people were going to get fucked up, and that created that atmosphere and that environment each and every time you guys came to the ring. So that was something that worked very, very well for you guys.
Yeah, and it was just so much fun, and on another note, I would like to actually give credit to. I know you're familiar with who Emmett First is, the boy that was with. He actually, at the time, me and Spider were trying to think of names. We had Hell's Henchmen, Devil Dogs, and then Emmett had actually texted me. He said, "What about the original Thug Crew?" So it was actually Emmett, one of my former students, that actually came up with the name. Cool. So I made him an honorary member, gave him one of the first shirts, and the first show we had, I came out and I gave him a bandana, because he helped bring us to life. And the way that I went out last year, man, and it's I'm not a guy that cries too much, except when I watch like The Notebook or Gridiron Gang, but that could have been because of all the geese, but I don't know. But, not a loser.
No, it's funny, you talk about that last match. I remember you weren't necessarily keen on working with Billy and Dick. But over a year later, those guys are still our tag team champions. You guys did the favor for them, and they become one of the hottest tag teams we've ever had.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think they're just, they're probably the hottest tag team, there right now, because you don't have guys like Spider and me, Spider and me around to just kind of,
Keep it real.
But you know what? No, I'm not discrediting them at all. Like Billy is like an amazing guy, great worker. Dick Blood, I still, he still has a receipt coming to him because the guy, my last match, and I didn't want to be powerbombed. You know me, I've always hated leaving my feet. I'm not going to admit it.
You have no problem powerbombing everybody else.
Well, yeah, on the bomb. Hello, it's tattooed on my chest. Come on. And the powerbomb, no problem. And then all of a sudden, Dick Blood comes off the top rope. I'm thinking the Macho Man elbow right here. Macho Man elbow right to my nose. My nose, you saw it.
Oh yeah.
It was there.
Yeah.
And it was like
It was a parting gift.
A parting gift. And you know what? Whatever, it happened. And I'm not hot at him now.
You weren't even really hot at him.
I really wasn't hot at him. I was just like,
we went to the spike after, and you weren't hot at all.
Oh, that's because we were so drees.
You're on a time crunch, so I want to fire some rapid fire questions at you. You broke in with the CWF and Ernie Todd. Tell us about your time working with Ernie and your relationship with him.
You know what? I broke in with Ernie in December of '97, and at the time Brian Jewell and Bobby Collins were doing the training. And I can remember, wanting to be a wrestler for the longest time, and finally I had gotten the outlet to do it. I paid Ernie Todd, I believe it was $1,500, and I was actually stupid enough at the time to actually think that this was going to be something I was going to do for a living. I actually went out and took a loan to get boots, to get gear, to pay this $1,500. Whoever got it, but. You know what, Ernie? He's just a different breed of cat, man. It's like he didn't really ever irk me or do anything wrong to me, because I think he was just kind of always wanted to have me in his corner, mainly because I was friends with Spider. But I don't know, I just can't pinpoint it. He was very much about putting on a good show, but also at the same time wanting to make sure he got over on that show. Like, for example, me and Royce, we formed Team Impact. Well, it's over, it's building. All of a sudden, oh, I got this great idea, guys. The Big Kahuna's gonna rip his shirt off, and I'm gonna be a member of Team Impact. And I said, Royce, pass me some more gimmicks. Yeah, okay, sure, Ernie. And the next thing you know, the whole locker room was Team Impact, just like NWO.
Wasn't it like JD Chaos a member of Team Impact?
I don't even want to comment on that. I don't even remember that. I don't know. But
there's some people that have claimed that you kind of got preferential treatment breaking into the business, being one of the few guys that were kind of big and muscled up at the time. Do you feel that you kind of got a pass of paying dues necessarily because you were a commodity to the company?
I wouldn't say I got a pass in paying my dues, because I was always there to because at the time there were only two rookies. There were me and Spider. So we always set up the ring and we always tore down the ring. But I definitely do think that Ernie and Steve Stryker and Vance Nevada at the time, with no intentional doing any harm, but they really kind of blew my head up, and I kind of had the Goldberg syndrome, where just go out there and flex and clothesline some guys. And there was a certain period of time where I didn't really get a lot of training and focus on the fundamentals, and it kind of really hurt my in-ring ability. Because I would get in there with guys like Royce, who can work amazing matches, and I kind of felt bad because I couldn't keep up with him. So I definitely think I did get some special treatment, but it ultimately did kind of hurt my career a little bit.
You talk about not knowing the fundamentals. You were one of the guys at the forefront of kind of bringing hardcore and extreme to the city of Winnipeg right around the time ECW was hot, the Attitude Era was hot. How was that approach to you, and who was kind of the driving force behind making that happen?
The driving force, you see, I think the driving force behind that was, I would say, 99% of the ideas that came from the CWF were Royce, because you know what, people could say what they want about him, negatively or positively, but I mean the ideas he had back then were amazing, and ECW was so over, so he decided, well, why don't we try this? And saying anything when it comes to weapons or thumbtacks or anything around a guy like Spider, who's nuts to begin with, is just the wrong thing to do. But from there, it just set off like a chain of events. We had Spider had a bed of nails match in. I watched this Japanese video and he showed it to me, and he says, "Yeah, Spider, there's about 10,000 nails on here, and there's about 100 on there, and they're about a foot apart." Yeah, so I want you to suplex me on it, and then clothesline me on it, and then I, essentially did, or someone else did, and I remember a nail punctured his mouth, went through his cheek, and there was actually a picture of him smiling in the picture, and he came back, and he was happy as pie. And it led from doing the fans bring the weapons battle royals, to having crazy TLC matches, to some of the bloodbaths and the stuff we did in the CWE, like Royce falling from the rafters going through 3 tables, and Spider just jumping off a cage trying to go through 3 tables and breaking his finger, and then you see him kind of focusing like this and putting it back in place. And me power bombing guys through shards, tables with glass on them, or getting body slammed in thumbtacks. I mean, it really kind of elevated us to a different level. And across town, you had TRCW, who was ran by Bobby J, and I mean his top talents, like the Mecca, who is one of the 4 founding fathers of local wrestling in Winnipeg. He's done so much for the industry. You had the Mecca, you had Mentalo, you had
Burn.
Who?
That's about it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't actually mean it like that.
No, I know.
You had Playboy, and you had DiCaprio and a few other guys, and it was just kind of a battle of back and forth and back and forth. And I think,
was there legitimate heat between the companies at the time, or was it just we're gonna go out there and bust our ass and put on a better show?
You know what it was, and I kind of feel bad about it now, because Bobby J is the nicest guy in the world. And Ernie, and this is a shoot, and Spider will back it up. He had us so brainwashed that Bobby was doing all this stuff, and we were so passionate about wrestling at the time, where there was actually the story where I used to live about 4 blocks from Chalmers, and back then Spider was he was legitimately nuts. TRCW was having a show. Spider convinced me, we're gonna go down to that fucking show with these bats, and he had the bats, and we're going, and he was already looking that way, so you knew there's nothing could calm him down. So I called down there, and in 2000, I think Shane Madison was the only person that had a cell phone. I believe it, he did. And I said, "Hey man," I said, "I'm at my house. I can't calm Spider down. We're gonna come down there, and we're gonna smash some skulls." And then what I heard is he kind of ran behind Axe. He was like, "You're gonna protect me, eh?" And Axe said, "Fuck, you're on your own, man." But you know what, Madison, long story short, he kind of calmed me down. I calmed Spider down, and it didn't happen. But I mean, the heat that was there, I think, was mostly created from, I would say, probably from Ernie. Because I mean, when we ultimately went over to TRCW, when we had pretty much done everything we could do in CWE. We had worked everybody we had worked. There was nothing else for us.
Is that why you guys left?
Yeah.
Or was there heat with Ernie?
No, there was no heat with Ernie. We didn't have any heat with him. We actually legitimately, went to. He was having a garage sale, and we just kind of picked up Chad Tatum came to the training center, and me and Royce were there, and it's and Mike Angels was with us. Ross Gills was, I think he was out of town, and because we were all, and Spider, but he, chose to stay with our.
Who was the driving force behind that, Royce?
No, it was I would probably say it was a decision me and Royce had made on our own. We talked about it because we talked all the time. We worked together during the day, and we just said, it's time. So we went down to the training center. Chad and Tatum and Angels pulled up, and we said, "This is what's going on." And they're like, "Oh, okay, let's go," because they were our boys. We had. I'm not saying I trained them. I had matches with them, but I mean they far surpassed anything I could do. But so we went to this garage sale, and you see Ernie, walking around like this in his spandex purple pants, flexing with his shirt off. He's like, "Oh, it's my boys. These are my boys." And we're like, "Oh man, this is gonna be bad." And like I'm just like over here trying to focus on this, this Barney doll, and Royce is like, "Get over here, get over here." And in the biggest work ever, and I mean Royce is like gonna be hot about it, is like he actually was able to squeeze out some tears about how bad he actually felt about leaving Ernie, and we had to cover our mouths and laugh.
What was the excuse he gave him then if he was crying? Like what did he tell him? Why were you guys leaving?
Well, you know what I don't remember exactly what he had said because I was just so blown away by the fact that he could actually was able to work those tears. Like he almost made me want to cry. But I think he was just like, you know what? You're like a father to me, and you've done so much for me. But it's just like it's time for me to move on. And this is just we feel really. You guys are my boys. Like you're my champion. Like Team Impact. Assisted suicide. And Mike Angels. He said it about 5 times. And Mike Angels all of a sudden said, "Hello, I'm here too." And essentially that's what it was. We ended up quitting. That's the infamous garage
Did you guys at least buy some old dishes or something or cutlery or something?
I took the Barney doll.
As a parting gift?
Yeah. No, I took it. I took it from the garage sale, and I think I gave it to my daughter. I don't think I actually paid for it because he stiffed me on enough POs and.
Why didn't Spider go with you guys?
You know what? I think.
And was there heat?
There wasn't. I wouldn't say there was heat. There was probably some disappointment. Because Spider was such a loyal, devoted guy, and and that's one of the things I respect about him so much is he just didn't want to. He wasn't going to leave because it was something that he had helped build, and because believe me, we wanted him to come, and I felt bad about leaving him there, and so for me and him, there wasn't heat. Me and Spider have never ever had heat in the 25, 30 years we've known each other. He was just a little disappointed about it, but I still went down to the shows and supported him and watched him wrestle. It's Carino and do a bunch of other things. And you know what? It's like there was never any heat over it. I just think it was in the back of his head. He still kind of had that little bit maybe of a hatred for Bobby J, and just kind of thought that I'm not really. This is where I'm going to stay. This is kind of where I belong, and I respect him for being that, that loyal to Ernie, We
got time for 2 questions left.
Sure.
Who is the worst person? This is a 2-part question on my 2 questions.
Yeah, we got time.
Who is the worst person you've ever been in the ring with, and who was the worst match, or what was the worst match?
The worst person I've ever been in the ring with?
Yeah.
Like in terms of...
Just it was fucking awful, you hated it.
Oh, man.
You would never, if you had to choose somebody you never wanted to wrestle again, who would it be?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. People usually say that about me.
Everyone always asks, what's the best match? That's no fun. I want to hear about the shitty matches. I love shitty wrestling.
Oh, man, you know what? I don't want to say the shitty. I've had so many matches over the years, and some of them were probably shitty because I was in them. But I would probably say the match that didn't gel for me and didn't really work out properly after over a few matches was with Zach Mercury.
You'd be surprised how.
And you know what? I'm not shooting on the guy. He's a great guy. I just we just didn't click and have the same ideas about how to tell the story, and it just didn't work out. So I would say I probably had some of my worst matches with him. I'm not going to say they were entirely his fault. Yes, they were. But, that's just kind of...
So would he be the worst opponent and worst match you had, or was there a match you actually had with somebody else that was like, wow, what the fuck happened there?
Oh, you know what? Man, I can remember coming back so pissed off after some matches, but I just don't remember why at the time, because you remember back then you were just a young kid, and I can remember you saying like, man, like why is Dalton always so mad? You know, and I just man, I can't even remember. Can you think of any that you used to watch from the PCW
Well,
days?
there's one match I want to close the show with because it's become like a local legend. I don't know if it's the worst match you've ever had, but it's definitely one that I remember.
Oh shit, I know it's called.
Darren the Bomb Dalton, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, 1,500 people at the University of Manitoba. Tell us about that match.
Oh man, I was like,
It's awesome. I love it. I have it on tape somewhere. It's
not awesome. It's actually not awesome. I was given the opportunity to, to wrestle Hacksaw, and number one, I was a little confused as to why I was given the opportunity. But I guess, Mike Davidson at the time, who I give credit to for putting me in that spot, figured, Darren's a, big bruiser. I mean, he can get in there, and I mean, who can have a bad match with, with Hacksaw? It's
I've worked Hacksaw like 12 times now, and he's the easiest guy in the world to have a match with.
Go fuck yourself. So essentially, I mean, things started off okay, we were following along with the style of match he wanted to have, and then somewhere along the way, I kind of was like a deer in the headlights, and I'll be completely honest. We got overwhelmed, I got nervous, and I forgot a lot of what was going on. And I essentially, I'll admit it at this point, I denied it for years, and I got hot. I actually deleted Wavell off of Facebook 2 years ago for making fun of it, but he was actually legitimately true, and I'm sorry, Wavell, that I did that. You were 100% true. I ended up screwing up the finish to the match, and I felt like a complete idiot. I went to the back and literally was in tears. And I can remember Wavell told me later that Hacksaw had come back and said, "Man," he said, I've had tougher street fight matches,
or easier
street fight matches."
My favorite's the clotheslines you take in that. You take clotheslines, and instead of just taking a straight back bump, for some reason you just weird jump and flop to your stomach.
Yeah,
it logically doesn't make any sense to move that way when being hit by a clothesline, but somehow you defied logic and took these wicked clotheslines.
Yeah, and it didn't really make sense to be in the ring with Hacksaw Jim Duggan either, but I don't know. I'm honored that I was given the opportunity, and afterwards I went over and I apologized to him. And he was, he was good about it. And we went to the after show after, and he was really good about it. And I didn't really feel it too bad, because the next night, we were out of town, and he had a match with Bobby J, and he came out to me after, and he said, "Kid, you thought that match we had last night was bad? Whew, don't feel so bad, kid." And that was right after working Bobby J. And, whatever.
All right, so we're now closing up. The floor is yours. Anything you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to say before we take it home here?
Number one, thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come back 5.5, 6 years ago, when you had a full roster full of young, hungry talent, and you gave an older guy the opportunity to come back. And I just, I had a lot of fun, and I was able to team with my best friend. And just my overall experience with the CWE. I mean, it was fun. It was great, and I miss it every day. And the way, I went out last year with, my best friend and partner Spider coming out and hugging me, and was making the comment, you have OTC over your heart and the tattoo, and that just you kind of made that happen. And I appreciate that. And I just appreciate everything that, all the fans and everybody else has done for me. Brian Jewell for breaking me into the business. Robbie Royce for teaching me essentially everything I know, about the business. I'm sorry I wasn't a better student, but I did my best, and I thank you for that, Robbie Royce. And just, thanks for having me on the show.
When will you be back? Are you gonna ever return to the business?
Nah, you know what? I just think I think there was a time and there was a place, for the Tattooed Terminator, but you know what? I think that guys like you and Tyler Colton and ATM, it's your turn. It's your turn to shine. I mean, you've been in the business and you went down the roads with me, and you took grief from me, and you've essentially done what no one else has done, in Winnipeg. And I mean, it's your turn. It's Tyler Colton's turn. It's your turn. It's ATM. It's the young guy's turn to shine.
If you can recreate the Care Bear singlet, I'll make it your turn again.
Oh.
That heavyweight championship is all yours.
I don't think Rave Reviews is still open anymore. Oh man.
I'd like to really thank you for being on the program. It's always great to sit and talk professional wrestling, just talk life with Darren Dalton. So we'll definitely have to have you back sometime.
Absolutely, I had a great time. Thanks for
And we didn't even scratch the surface. Like, there's plenty of stories of you know, we need to get to with you.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's plenty of guys that you'd like to bury. And it was a relatively positive podcast this week. It's a little disappointing.
Well, you know, I'm going to tell one quick story. This is back in the DCW days when you know, I was kind of known as a little bit of an enforcer, and you know, there was a battle royal, and we had this young, like, juiced up kid from Selkirk, Chris Rain, piece of shit, complete piece of shit. Still is. I don't talk to him today, but I never liked him as a character, as a human being. But long story short, Mike Davidson said, "I want you to go in that battle royal, and fuck him up." And I'm like, sing it to a geezed up, you know, Tattooed Terminator.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, no problem.
15 years ago, yeah.
So his music hits. He comes out. Me and Adam Knight are in there. Knight goes to grab him. I throw Knight out of the way, and I start punching him in the face. He was down on the ground. I kicked him in the ribs, threw him over the freaking top rope. Turns out I broke his nose, cracked his ribs. He came into the back and he said, "Thank you, sir." And he sat down. He didn't say anything.
Was any of that necessary?
It was absolutely necessary. He was an egotistical, you know, piece of shit who came into my house and was gonna think he was gonna walk around strutting around thinking he was God's gift or whatever. Well, you know what? Be put in the ring with me, and I'm gonna kick your ass. Just to kick Spanky's ass, but you can have me back another time to tell that story.
Didn't Rain get entered in the withdrawal from the Rumble one year because he was living off to you?
I'm not sure, but
Like online, and then he withdrew because.
I think it was him and Royce.
Oh, it was Royce. My bad.
Yeah, it was Royce. It was him and Royce.
That's right. Yeah.
After that, we had kind of like, you know, like for different reasons. I just kind of, you know, whatever. I did what I did to him. It is what it is. But yeah, that's yeah. I mean, you know, you want to say wrestling's fake. You know what? I may not be the most, you know, talented wrestler. I may not be able to do a very good headlock takedown. Easy Rider will tell you that because he still has a cauliflower ear from 20 years ago. But you know what? Come in the ring with me, and I'll show you how wrestling fake is. And I dump you on your fucking head with a suplex.
And then take your head off after.
Exactly. You know what? Wrestling's not fucking fake. All you bitches out there are fake.
I've got nothing to follow up with that.
There you have it.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week, and we'll see if we can top the intensity.
Sorry I got so worked up, but I've been going. The yoga's man. See, you brought it out, be damned. Gotta make a comeback now. Thank you, everybody.